Hello, everybody. My name is Zoltán. Kész. I'm your host today at the Central European Affairs podcast. And my guest today is Martin Vlachynský, who works at Ines. Ines is the Institute of Economic and Social Studies based in Bratislava. It's a non-governmental think tank. And they just published a very interesting study, which was titled Recover. Martin, author of this, and now let's get into the middle of it. Why should we be concerned about the recovery plan?
Hi, Zoltán. I'm very glad that you invited me to represent our think tank and that you read the study. Our think tank believes in decentralization and working of open free markets. And we always viewed European Union as an opportunity to create such an open but decentralized market for capital, for goods, for people. Unfortunately, in the past 10, maybe 15 years, we see that this project of European Union is moving towards a certain form which we are not very happy about. And this next generation EU program or package, or call it whatever you want, is a sudden huge leap towards more centralized, more bureaucratized Europe, which is a situation we are not very happy about. And we wanted to spread this message also beyond Slovak readers and public.
There are 10 main points why you are not happy about the next generation Europe. Can you highlight these 10 points, which you think is the most important? Why this one, and so on?
Probably the most important point is what we call the permanent temporariness of this program. Because officially, this next generation EU, it should last for 7 years, and it should be repaid until the year 2058, which is almost 40 years from now. And we believe it's almost impossible that after such a long time, the new generation of politicians which will be in Europe will just simply turn around and rework everything which was done in terms of new taxes, new structures to build this program, and we will simply say, okay, now we are back to the state we were in 2020, and we are pretending the next generation EU never happened. What we are afraid is that this is a Pandora's box. The EU will get to use this kind of tools in whatever crisis will come in the future years. And we will see next generation EU2, next generation EU3, and we will see it as a perpetual thing of enlarging EU in terms of fiscal size, but also in terms of competencies of Brussels.
What would be an alternative, in your opinion?
Well, we believe such a program should not exist. This is not a pandemic program. Even they call it, this is a reaction on the COVID pandemic and so on. It's really not. The COVID pandemic problem is with operational costs. Many shops, many companies are closed. They don't have the cash to run through this time, but it's not a problem of capital expenditure. But this next generation EU is a huge package of focused capital expenditures, mostly on green and digital projects. And it's not free money. It's not coming out of blue sky. Slovaks, but all citizens of EU will have to pay for it in the taxes, which are quite clearly stated, which will be coming to EU in the next few years, including carbon tax and all other kinds of taxes. So the simple answer is, do not create such a huge expenditure package inside EU.
Well, here it says in number 4 that one size doesn't fit all. What do you mean by that?
I mean that there are certain rules included in this package. Most importantly, that a certain part, more than a third of all the resources in the package, should be used for green projects, and around fifth of the resources should be used for digital projects. So it's telling everyone, okay, here is some money for capital expenditures in your country, but we are telling you, you have to use it for this and this and this. So I can say, for example, we have a lot of old centers for disabled persons and centers for elderly, which really need reconstruction. But for example, this package says, okay, you can do this reconstruction, but you have to fulfill these rules that the reconstructed buildings have to meet the energy certificate, this and that, or otherwise we are not giving you the money. And we are different member countries. Slovakia is, in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, one of the greener ones. For example, Czech Republic is one of the browner ones. There are big differences between the member countries, and some countries need more digitalization, some countries need less digitalization, but this is a center telling us you have to spend your capital expenditures on this and this and this, and we don't really care that if you are greener or not or whatever. So it's one size which is supposed to fit every member country.
See, when I was reading the study, I was a bit surprised when you said that the European Union becomes more isolated from global. The new taxes, or is the reason behind this point?
Well, when we look at the new new sources of revenue for the European Union, the new taxes, new levies, we see a lot of rhetorics that the leading European politicians from France and other countries are telling the voters, oh, don't be afraid, everything will be paid by third countries. The carbon tax, the digital tax, and all these kind of, the big international corporations will pay for this, which is, on the first place, it's not really true. European consumer will have to cover a lot of these new taxation costs, but also it's selling these global companies that the European market will not be so accommodating to them, especially, for example, to digital companies. The European Union is telling them, we are going to tax you a lot, we are going to give you a lot of new regulations, and it might simply happen that these companies, these investor will say, okay, we will rather restrict our activities in European market than to undergo all these new expenses and all this new regulation. Because Europe is not the biggest market, it's by far not the biggest market in the world. And we may see that digital giants just cutting their services. And it would be for the first time, for example, the well-known GDPR rules resulted in many global media, especially from the United States, simply cutting the option for European consumers to access their portals, to access their news, because they simply, it did not pay for them to comply with the new GDPR European regulations.
All right. When you say that there's lack of motivation for true reform, what's the root of this reforms?
Well, when we look back in the past, we see that most of big reforms, especially in Slovak history, I can say for Slovak history, happened during dire straits, during difficult times. And these reforms happened not because the politicians did have money to make these reforms. They happened because the politicians did not have any other option. And I'm afraid that giving the current politicians new resources, new money to spend, to build, like hospitals and all kind of investments in brick and mortar, will help them to show their voters that, look, we are doing something, but not really doing reforms. For example, in education. In education, Slovakia needs a really deep, important reforms to be made. But these reforms do not require a lot of money. They are not about spending. They are about changing the way how Slovak schools, how Slovak education works. And it requires politicians to invest their political capital, to invest their popularity into these changes, which may not be always popular. But if they get a lot of money from the NGO package, they will simply, repair some schools, they buy some computers into the school, they make some expensive purchases of books and whatever, and they will show, okay, this is our reform. But it's not a reform, it's just a spending.
I see, and this is well understood. Now, one other question, Martin, which is not connected to your study, but since we are focusing on the Central European region, especially the Visegrad 4 countries, and you come from Slovakia, how do you see the future of the Visegrad 4 countries within the European Union?
I believe that our countries have a lot in common, not only because of the past, but also because how we behave in the European Union. I believe our experience of the 90s gave us kind of a head start when it comes to understanding markets and implementing reforms in our countries. In 90s, Slovakia, Poland, Hungary made really sweeping reforms, which are kind of unimaginable in the West today. On the other hand, I believe we became kind of spoiled by the opportunities to get some money from the European Union. I see a lot of opportunistic behavior that all our countries are looking at Brussels as a potential source of money to spend right now. And it influences how our politicians behave. For example, Slovakia holds the record for the absolutely lowest turnout in European election ever. I think it was a 13% of Slovaks turned on the European election, and it really shows that we don't really care about the European policies. We mainly care if we get the money or not, and what are the conditions of getting the money. And I believe this is a strategy poised to fail in the future, because the European Union is shaping a lot of policies around us, social policies, immigration policies, monetary policy, and many other. And we are mostly simply accepting them, not really discussing if they are good or not. We see EU as something distant, happening out of our reach. And this can be a problem in the near future.
All right, thank you, Martin. Another thing about your think tank, about Ines, what's the next study that you're going to publish?
Well, we are active in a number of fields, especially public finance, competitiveness, but also, for example, healthcare or education. We publish mostly in Slovak language for Slovak readers, but we are running also some international projects. One of them is the bureaucracy index, which tries to measure the amount of bureaucracy in member countries. We have currently 4 or 5 partners. We are building a new project which is called the Health for Money, and which will be a ranking of health systems in European countries. Also now we are launching an internalization of our new calculator, which is called the cost of employee, and which is a calculator which tries to calculate every cost related to employment in a country. For now we have it in Slovakia, but we have several partners from this region, and hopefully this year all these international projects will become live and will be published. So if you time from time follow our website, then you will learn about when's the time you can access these projects.
Talk to you or other colleagues from the Institute of Economic and Social Studies from Slovakia. Our guest today was Martin Vlachynský, who is a chief analyst at Ines, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and I'll see you in the future, hopefully.
My pleasure. Thank you.